Hello there, everyone. It's Dove again. I thought I would welcome you to my little container garden. Actually, it's a pretty big container garden right now. But I finally got pretty much everything in containers that I wanted to grow in containers. I just have a few more flowers that I have to pot up. But for the most part, everything's in their container that is going in a container. And so I thought I would just show you what I have going. And I grow in containers mostly because of the animals and because of the clay dirt and just a lot of various reasons. So I grow in raised beds and in containers. And let's see, where shall I start? Okay, we'll start here. These are my half whiskey barrels, and these are true whiskey barrels that have been cut in half. And we had to flip them over and drill a bunch of drainage holes in them, because when you're working with any kind of containers, you want to make sure they have holes in them. And whether they came like that or whether you have to drill them in there, either way, you're going to definitely need drainage holes. Those are my potatoes. And these guys are holding 2 tomato plants each, because they're pretty big containers. So I was able to actually get 2 tomatoes in here, and they're growing up one stake, and these are veggie rings that have a little thumb screw on there, a modified thumb screw. The screw on it was really long to accommodate different stakes, and so I had to actually cut the thumb screws off, because putting them back to back like this, having rings on both sides, that thumb screw was came right out to here, and so it would have not done very well with that plant trying to grow there. So we actually had to cut some of that off, probably almost an inch off of each screw. But they grow right up through these rings, and you leave the bottom rings right where they are, and as they're growing, you just move the top rings up and down, and you may only need 2 rings per plant, but you might need 3 rings per plant if they get really tall. And I've just got some geraniums in here, keeping them company. And I use the coconut coir mulch in my containers, just like I do on my raised beds. This is the husk of the coconut, the brown outer husk of each coconut, which is normally like a waste product, but they've turned it into a usable market, and it actually works really well for mulch, so I like it. And I made a video about how to rehydrate this particular mulch, plus I have another video about working with coconut coir in general, because that's what I use as a potting mix in most of my containers, is a homemade mix that actually contains some fine grade coconut coir. But here are my porter tomatoes. They're looking pretty good, and I'm training them to a single stem. And so once a week or so I have to come through here and pinch off those new suckers. There's a couple that I need to get. And so they'll grow right up through those rings and hopefully be really nice and tall and healthy and produce a lot of good tomatoes for me. So those are my 2 tomatoes. I've got a lot of tomatoes growing in the beds, but I had a bunch of extra tomato seedlings, so I wanted to grow some out here too. And then that's just mint right there to attract beneficials. And these pots were the ones that my blueberry plants came in, because they were 2 to 3 years old, and so they sent them in these nice big 1 gallon and like 3/4 gallon or half-gallon pots. And so I've got this smaller Thai pepper in the small container, and this one is a black Hungarian, which is like a jalapeno pepper except for it's black. And then I have a purple jalapeno pepper plant here, and I just had to put some screen down in here because these holes were actually huge, and so just like with all my other containers, I put screens over the drain holes so that none of the potting soil comes through. and I did the same thing in here. We flipped it over and I drilled holes in here, and I put screen over the bottom so none of it would fall through. That's just a tray of chives that are trying to grow, and a little tray of balsam, impatiens. And then in this pot and in this pot I have ground cherries, and those are kind of runty. They're about the same age, but they're a little bit short right now. Hopefully they'll catch up. But these pots are huge, and so I figured I could grow a couple ground cherries in each one, and if they get too sprawling, I'll just take twine and wrap it around the two plants as they're growing so that they don't sprawl out over the container. These are a lot taller, and they're all really healthy, but these are taller than those other ones. And there's fuzzy leaves. They're very pretty and very healthy. And in all my containers I use my homemade potting mix, which I made a video about, and I think it works really well, and the plants seem to like it. They're very healthy. And in this center one I have 2 bell peppers, and I did have a stake in there. I was going to put a stake and use those veggie rings because the bell peppers can get pretty tall, but the screw thumbs and the actual black part of the veggie ring is too big, and it protruded too far over the plant, so I actually cannot use those veggie rings on these plants, and hopefully they just won't need them. I know that bell peppers like to get kind of tall, but hopefully these guys will be okay. They seem to have pretty nice thick stalks, so hopefully they'll be alright. And then this one is just another pepper plant. Which pepper plant is this? Oh, these are pepperoncini. Sorry. I didn't have them labeled and I forgot for a minute. But this is a pepperoncini. He's already starting to flower. And these are just regular tomato cages that aren't useful for the big heirloom tomatoes that I have growing. And so I use them usually just for peppers, and for this tomato plant I did actually use a regular tomato cage, but this is a yellow pear tomato, so it's just a little cherry tomato plant. So I figured one of these little scrawny cages would probably be sufficient for that because it's just a cherry tomato. And then those are the other 2 pepperoncinis. So hopefully we'll have a lot of good peppers this year. And then over here in these long containers, these are short ornamental hot peppers. These are actually kind of runts, and I'm not sure how they're going to do, but this first one is called Phileas Blue, and they were already trying to make flowers, and I picked the flowers off of this one because it was so short. I didn't want it to start making peppers yet. This one, it's making flowers too, and so I'll probably go ahead and let it because it's quite a bit taller than its brothers, and so I'm going to let it go ahead and start making peppers. And then these back ones, they're looking really good. These are called Chinese 5-color, and that's because they go through 5 stages of colors. They'll be red, yellow, purple, green, and orange, I think. Red, yellow, purple, green, orange, yeah, 5. But they're not making flowers yet, but that's okay, because I want them to grow and be nice and tall and sturdy. And then in my other video that I just made, I showed how I put together all my potato garden buckets. I probably have about 20 containers of potatoes all together, and they look pretty good. Some of them don't look so good. I've had a lot of bug issues and weather issues, really bad weather and bug issues, so some of them don't look that great, but for the most part they look okay. And these are baby round zucchini plants. They're looking splendid despite all the squash bugs and cucumber beetles that have been trying to destroy them. They're looking pretty good, and they have flowers on them. Not quite sure what kind of yield I'll get, but I'm keeping my fingers crossed. And I've got more potato plants here. These are almost ready to start turning brown after they flower and everything. And these are actually not staying here. These are a couple more of my blueberry plants, and they're going out in my front yard. 2 of them are already out front, and I just have to take those 2 out there, and they're going to be situated around a raised bed that looks just like that one, except for it's planted with asparagus and some herbs and some flowers right now. But yeah, that's about it, and of course I am just about out of time. I still have a few more flowers to plant in those pots, but other than that, this is pretty much all of my containers. Everything else is in the raised beds and all. It's all keeping me pretty busy. My green beans are looking good. They're all the way to the top of the that arch trellis now. Alright, well, I will talk to you later in another video. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.